Welcome to Cultivating Conversations, a podcast where we have tough and thought provoking conversations about life, love, the pursuit of happiness, and everything in between. I am your host, Stacy T, and welcome to season 1, episode number 4. So, this episode was entitled Kicking It During Quarantine. For this particular week, I gave my testimony about some of the challenges I had faced personally with the hope that it would be an encouragement to those who watched and listened. I pray that this episode blesses you. If it did, leave a comment, like, share, and enjoy. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you'll be the first to have up-to-date information about when season 2 kicks off. As always, thank you so much for stopping by CCTV and enjoy. So I'm going to shoot this really quick ad while I'm waiting. When this is over and you get some free time, shoot over to my I Design Beauty page because I did a video today. And I did an at-home facial and it was pretty fun. And I did it with some of my my face-to-face products with Indulge by I Design Beauty. When this is over and you get a free moment, shoot on over and check out the video and tell me how you feel. I didn't do my regular weekly recap this week. I'm sure we probably been all hearing like the same, messages and things like that, messages of hope and stuff. This week was good for me. I had a good week. I've been having good weeks, but I've just been really kind of, I don't want to use the word burdened, but I've been really, really praying for those who are really, really struggling at this time. And a lot of times when people are going through and we are, fine, life is fine for us, we normally cannot, it's hard for us, for some of us, not everybody, but it's hard for some of us to really empathize with people who are going through because life is fine for us and we are detached from what others are going through. And maybe because the things that I've gone through for like these past 3-4 years or so are still fresh to me, that I can, as it talks about with Jesus bearing the infirmities, like my heart goes out to people who are really, really suffering, and with this being Good Friday, a lot of people, even people in the church, and I've talked about this for weeks about how, even though we are saved, those of us who are saved, blood-washed believers, we go to church every Sunday, even something like this can shake the very foundation of a blood-washed believer, or at the least, it can cause us to really think about like what, I've spoken to people that they've said like, to be honest, my faith is a little shaky right now. I don't understand what's going on. And none of us understand really what's going on. But what we do have is the word of God, right? But when things keep happening, just bad news after bad news after bad news, it can take a toll on you. So whether it's my beloved, sisters and those who are watching, who have been experiencing that, whether it's you who are going to watch this after this goes live, I want to tell you that even though I'm in a good place now, and I'm grateful that I'm in a good place, I understand. And I really, really empathize with all of those that are going through. I spoke with my counselor, my therapist on Monday, and I was talking to him because I felt bad. I felt bad because while so many people are going through so much, I'm at peace.
I'm really, really at peace. And I started to feel bad about being at peace with everything going on. It's so many people going through what they're going through. And I was talking to my counselor, and I was like, I don't understand like why I'm feeling like this, and he said to me, that, the blessings of the Lord, they come in waves for people. Sometimes he will, withhold, his grace from a certain situation going on with you so that you can go through your fire, you can go through your test, and he will allow others, he will extend his grace on others, and he would allow them to have their moment and have their time, and then those times switch. So, he was telling me that I shouldn't feel bad for being in a good place, and that kind of gave me some relief because I really started to feel, bad. But I realized that everybody can be going through at the same time. And even though there is a lot of people going through, there are people that really need to be strong in this hour, and I'm grateful for that. However, I'm not so far removed and happy where I am that I am not touched and not just I have my heartfelt condolence, and I feel really bad for people that are going through. And I just want to share my testimony. Now, let me just preface by saying that what I went through these last few years pales in comparison to what you may be going through, what, your family members may be going through. I was speaking to somebody where they lost a family member. There were two other people that were in the hospital. There's just so much going on, okay? But by September of last year, I had been homeless for 2 years. I've been homeless for 2 years because I lost my job at this big company and things like that, and things just spiraled out of control. But not only did I find myself homeless, but I was separated from my children because I had to leave from where I was. And in the midst of that, my mother got sick. This is a woman who was, she was in her 80s, but she was vibrant. She was doing a lot. And all of a sudden, within a day, I went from taking her to get a CAT scan from a normal, a regular doctor's appointment she had, to that night rushing her to the ER because the doctor said that she had clotting in her lungs. And by 2 o'clock that morning, I found out that she had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Not knowing what was going to happen, not understanding, what that looked like for my mother, who was already, kind of frail. She had lost a lot of weight, within that year, but we didn't know what was happening. So for 19 days, I had to be her caretaker. For 19 days, I had to watch her, just her health decline. And I may have shared this before, so forgive me if I have, like on this podcast. I spent those 19 days watching her, like from this woman that was vibrant, that taught me everything that I know, that was self-sufficient even in her 80s, to me having to spoon feed her food to the point where I had to, like, and anybody that's been a caretaker for somebody that had cancer, they can understand. But this happened in a span of 2 weeks. And I didn't know what was going to happen. But one of the great things that happened was, God gave me peace, and he gave me instruction with everything. And even though it didn't take away the pain, it eased it a bit because I knew that he was there. And even though I felt like I didn't have answers, even though I felt like, things just wasn't adding up, one thing that I did know was that he was with me. But here's the thing. While I was going through grieving, the sickness, this illness that came out of nowhere, and the sickness, I was still homeless. I was still separated from my children. I was living with somebody, and I was in their room. So I'm in this small bedroom, by myself, having to sort out what in the world is going on. When is this going to end? When am I going to find some place to live? When are my children and I going to be reunited? When am I going to stop this 2-hour, 3-hour commute every day? Because it seemed like it was not going to end. And one day, I really had to take control over what I was feeling, because everything in my environment said that it wasn't going to get better. But I had to take control of what my environment looked like and what it was going to look like, and not look at what it looked like in that present state, but really say, God, this is going to get better because it has no other choice but to get better. And it did. It did. God provided a place for my children and I. We're all together, and it is because of that. It is because of that that now, during this pandemic, I could have been still separated from my children. I could have still been homeless. You know, it just would have been a complete mess. And even though at that point, when I was going through what I was going through with, you know, my job situation being what it was, and being separated from my children, and not having a place to live, and not feeling like, you know, I was a good mother and things like that, I had to believe that something was going to give sooner or later. And I had to tell myself that it was going to get better, even though everything looked like it wasn't. So here we are on this Good Friday. And, you know, some of the memes last week and some of the things that, you know, our government was saying, which completely irritated me. I'm not talking about the things that were factual, but I'm talking about the things that they compared what this week was going to be to. But one of the things that they said was that this was going to be one of the hardest weeks for us. And isn't it ironic that this would be one of the hardest weeks, and this would be Passion Week, which was one of the hardest weeks for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Now, I know a lot of people, even before this, you know, there's just every time around this year, and just on any given day, there are arguments and there are things spoken about, you know, when Jesus was crucified and what day it was and things like that. And while, you know, the one thing that I'm learning about the Bible is that you really, really have to dissect the text. You can't just look at it for face value. And yes, there are a lot of things that may not necessarily line up with the canon of the scripture and the text based on how it was written and the people that it was written to and what the climate was in that day. But one thing is for sure is that he died. Jesus died, and he hung on that cross. He hung on that cross, and this is the day that so many commemorate in other religions. You know, I learned this in school. In other religions, they take this as a solemn day. A lot of the altars at churches with different denominations, they remove everything off of the altar, and they leave it bare, and they leave it naked, and they leave it empty, to signify how dark this time was. But in other cultures, in other countries, Good Friday is also known as Dark Friday. It's known as Holy Friday. I read something today that talked about how it was initially called God Friday, but they turned it into Good Friday. But there's not a lot of information about how that came about. But here is the thing. For us as Christians, we think about this and we call it Good Friday. Yes, it was bloody, it was bad, it was heinous, it was seen as capital punishment that day. It was just gruesome, it was ugly, just like how things are now. There are graves, there's a potter's field in New York for unclaimed bodies. There are bodies frozen in trucks. The funeral homes are inundated and they're overcrowded. People as of 2 weeks ago, people was able to Zoom or do some type of video to lay their loved ones to rest. Now they're going from funeral home to funeral home. Everything looks so ugly. It looks so grim. It looks like we are in total despair and confusion. But the one thing that I know is that God is not confused. God is, even in the midst of this, he knows what he is doing. He is in control. He is in control. This didn't take him by surprise. So even though, and I'm talking to the person because at the end of the day, I'm fine. I'm single. I'm fine. I'm cool. I'm chilling. I got my children. I'm good. But there are some singles who are not. There are some singles who don't really understand if they're going to be able to come out of this and actually look forward to getting married, because there are a lot of singles that have such a strong desire to be with someone, and now they're alone, and they may be single with children, or they may be single by themselves in a house alone with no noise, no conversation, no human contact. That's hard. For every couple that is getting together, that is reigniting, their prayer life and them as a couple, there's couples somewhere who cannot stand each other, who were already on the brink of ruin of what they known as holy matrimony before this, and now they have to be stuck in a house together. When they used to use the children, they used to use work, they used to use ministry, they used to use so much to kind of fill in that void so that they wouldn't have to deal with each other. For every parent that has homeschool kids that are in the 4th and the 5th grade and they're toddlers, and homeschooling is so bad, there are couples, single parents now that are dealing with teenagers. And I've seen some ungodly things that my daughter was showing me on some of these search engines where, and I don't know what the situation is. It can be, a parent who's just like wilding out, or it can be a parent that's an essential worker, that's a single parent that doesn't have anybody to take care of their kids. These teenagers, as of a couple of weeks ago, were out here completely wilding out. Completely. Threesomes, trains, all of this stuff. Imagine being the parent to a teenager that's out in the street running ragged because they just don't know how to sit still. For every good thing that is happening, there's somebody somewhere that is going through utter turmoil. There's somebody that's at the hands of, a victimizer at any moment. There's just so much going on. It's ugly, it's brutal. And you feel yourself like Jesus at the cross, on the cross, stretched beyond capacity, stretched beyond a mental capacity that I don't know if I could wake up another day and turn on the TV and they tell me that we have to still stay in our house. I don't know if I could wake up another day with a phone call or a text message that somebody else is in the hospital, somebody else is on a ventilator, somebody else has died. I don't know if I can take the sound of whoever I'm in the house with another day. I don't know if I could take just looking at myself and having to deal with myself another day, or the lack thereof, because I've been so good in masking the fact that I don't want to deal with myself, that now I don't have any other choice but to do it, and it's painful. But here is the good news, and this is what us Christians commemorate. Not so much that this is the day and so on and so forth, but we commemorate. And this is what the word commemorate means. It means to recall and show respect for someone. It means to celebrate by doing or building something. And the synonyms for commemorate is recall, recollect, retrieve, record, mark, or think. So even as it seems like the world is falling apart, I hope y'all didn't hear me burp, because I just burped. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm having heartburn. But anyway, even though things seem like they're falling apart, and I'm pretty sure that even after Jesus hung his head and gave his life, everyone thought that was going to be over. Regardless of what he preached, everyone thought that it was going to be over. And just like us, we hear the word and we talk about, all of the things that's going to happen in the world. And here we are. And it's kind of like, for some people, they're like, are things over? But the blessed hope that we have is that this whole week didn't end today. It didn't end with him hanging his head and saying it is finished. Because when he said it was finished, that was just the beginning. And even with this pandemic and even with everything that is happening, the way that people are and have become so innovative with what they are doing. Churches are stepping out of their comfort zone. Pastors are stepping out of their comfort zone. I believe that there are pastors and there are preachers that have no other choice but to walk away from the podium and the pulpit and being elevated from the people and the shout of the crowd as the response to your preaching. And now you just have to believe the word and stand on the word. There are those of us, that hear the word Sunday to Sunday, and we rely on those people that are delivering the word. And now we have no other choice. We don't have the preacher to come and feed us and feed us and feed us and feed us. Now we have to fish for ourselves because the only thing that's left is the word. So as everything happened in these 3 days and everything, Jesus comes back. He's resurrected. And that is why that's why I call it Good Friday. Because the goodness of it was, with everything that happened that was so gruesome and brutal, it was wrong, but he did it for us. And not only did he live to tell the story, but there were those who survived watching him die that lived to tell the story. So if you're watching this and you're one of those people, you're in one of those categories that I was talking about that's going through so much, I just want to remind you that you have breath in your body and you're going to live to tell the story. As we look forward to Resurrection Sunday and we look forward to recalling what, Christ has done, we look forward to recalling the people that have passed on. We look forward to thinking about those that we lost and making sure that we honor their name. And I know that you may be far from that. Those of you who have lost people, you may be very, very far from that. And I understand that. I understand that. My mother's birthday was March 24th. So March 24th, I was in my house sheltered, not able to do the things that I had hoped to plan to do to commemorate my mother's birthday. And I shut off my phone. I did all of this stuff, but then I turned my phone on because I said I need to be able to breathe life into what seems like a deathly and dismal situation. I lost my mother on November 6th. And I'm still grieving that. So I understand if you're not there yet, that's okay. But the one thing I do want you to know is that I don't think that it was a coincidence that God in his sovereignty allowed this to happen during this monumental moment in history that happens every single year, and it has been happening every single year for 2,000 years. And every year we do the same thing. Those that are in other religions, they have, the Seder, they have the Maundy Thursday, they go to the wall and they pray, they remove everything off of the altar, they have the Passover. Every year it's the same thing over and over again. We fast, we come aside, we lay our plate aside, we go to church on Friday, we listen to the 7 last cries, we go to church on Sunday, and every year it's the same thing over and over again. And God decided, I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to do something different. Because there's one thing when one person is suffering, and sometimes we don't necessarily know how to be compassionate. But it's another thing when the entire earth is suffering. humankind as we know it. But the good news is that there is a resurrection after the death. Good Friday just didn't end here, and that's why we call it Good Friday. So even though we have people that have passed on, people have lost parents, siblings, children, loved ones, family members, co-workers, we've lost all of those people, but all of civilization as we know it hasn't been wiped out. We are living through this, and we are going to be resurrected as a result of this, and we're going to come out better. We're going to come out stronger. We're going to come out wiser. We're going to come out better. So much better. If I could sing, I would sing, but I can't, so I won't. But, I think, Never Would Have Made It by Bishop Marvin Sapp is going to be, that could very well be the national theme forever, because this is something that we will never forget. But if you are one of those people that are not in a good space, I just want to remind you that, God is sovereign. He didn't just die and stay there. He got up with all power in his hands. We don't have to wait until Sunday. And just like we don't wait until Sunday to celebrate, you don't have to wait until this is over to celebrate. I pray and I hope that those couples that are having problems, that they can come together and reconcile and have the hard conversations that they need to have. I pray that those family relationships, those friendships that have been in dire straits, that we can come together and talk and hash things out. I pray that even with everything that's happening now, that there can be some type of normalcy found, even in this time. I've said it before, open up your curtains, blast some music, get into DJ D Nice, club quarantine, go into DJ Dex's, virtual praise party, find your favorite playlist, get on a Zoom conference with your friends, watch something uplifting on TV, play games with your children, recollect, when you first met your spouse, if you're single, write out what life is going to look like for you after this. What things are you going to do that you held off? If you held off taking that trip because you wanted to wait until you was booed up, if you didn't want to go to the movies because you felt like you couldn't do it by yourself, now here we are. Can't go nowhere. I did hit my head just now. You can't go nowhere. So what is life going to look like after this for you? I hope that we can come out of this with, and I believe that we will come out of this with a blessed assurance and a confidence in knowing that the same God that stretched himself out for us is the same God that may be stretching us now to what we think is our capacity, but he knows how much we can handle. He knows the way that we take, and his word still stands true. All things do work together for the good of them that love him and those that are called according to his purpose. He is going to bring us out of this better. He's going to bring us out of this better. But I hope that on this Good Friday and this entire weekend leading up to Sunday, that you can find just, I won't say one. I'm not going to say one. Find at least five good things right now in the present. 5 good things, even in the midst of this. 5 good things that you can say, you know what? I have this has happened, this is going on. Just 5 good things. And I guarantee that it will lift up your spirit, because as bad as it is, it can always be worse. I always say that. Every day I wake up, I say, you know what, Lord, even though I can't get out, and I'll share this. With everything that happened, with me, being homeless and all of this stuff, as of Monday, I'm being furloughed from my job. I still have my position, but I'm not going to get paid until the projected go back to work date. I'm not fretting. I'm not worrying. I'm not concerned because God is in control. And the great thing about it is that I have a business that I've been working on, so I can use more time for that. I don't know what's going to happen at the projected date. I don't know whether I'm going to have a job or not. But I thank God right now because I can't think that far. The Bible says in Matthew not to worry about tomorrow because tomorrow has enough troubles of its own. Worry about today. And right now, I have food. I have money in the bank. My children are safe. We have a place to live. And that in and of itself just I get up and I'm just so grateful. I'm not worrying about the other stuff. That stuff will be what is going to be when it's going to be what is going to be. Until then, I thank God for right now, today. And I thank God for you. I hope, I'm about to close. I'm about to close like I'm preaching. I thank God for you. Please know that if you are living and breathing, if you are a survivor, if you're living and breathing. And for whoever lost someone, start creating that legacy for them now. You have to survive in their honor. We don't have time for suicidal thoughts. We don't have time for depression. We don't have time for anxiety. We don't have time for fear. The curve is flattening. People are really taking heed to the social distancing. And I think that it's because it's starting to hit real close to home with the amount of people that have passed away. People are taking heed to it. The amount of beds that we needed, particularly in New York, hasn't been. The amount of deaths is still high, but the amount of people that are coming into the hospital is lessening. The amount of people that need to be intubated is lessening. So we are gradually coming out of this. So all we have to do is hold on. All we have to do is hold on. And I know that it's harder to do it than to say it. I understand, but you got to do it. You got to do it. Like I said last week, you have the power and the authority to take control over your environment. You can't control the molecules in the air and all of this stuff and how long it lasts on the ground and, the social distancing. You can't control what happens out there. Well, you can control what happens in your sphere, in your atmosphere. So I pray that if you're grieving, you grieve well. I pray that if you're depressed, you're anxious, you're fearful, I pray that there's no fear and no pride, that you will call somebody, reach out to somebody, to speak to somebody, to just get whatever off your chest when you need to. And if you're strong, I pray that God continues to put people in your spirit and in your mind to call and reach out to those who may not be well. The church is really innovative right now. There's so many wholesome words. And I'm so happy that the church is taking advantage of this great thing called technology. Just like everything else, social media is not the devil. He just gets in between and intertwined and stuff, just like with anything else. But there are good, wholesome words. There are concepts. There's so much. There's so much to be able to pull from. And if you are one of those that I talked about tonight, whether you're the single again, the single without kids, whether you are the separated from your spouse, or you're married and your house feels like a war zone because you and your spouse is not seeing eye to eye. Whether you are the mother that wants to pull your hair out, whether you are the school teacher, the principal, or the counselor who has to still deal with the teachers who may be dealing with people who are sick, and dealing with the children whose parents are sick, the social workers that have the burden of having to deal with those who were already living under the poverty line, that don't know how they're going to make ends meet. Whether you are the correction officer, the police officer, the parole officer, whether you are the pastor, that you're not used to social media, you don't know how to navigate through this, you don't even know what church is going to look like if you don't have a mega church and you don't have all of this. Maybe you had a startup ministry. Whomever you are, let's not forget who's in control. Let's not forget who's in control. We are not in control. Nobody is in control. God is in control. And I pray that you keep that at the forefront of your mind. I hope that you have a great weekend. I pray that you have a blessed resurrection Sunday, because he got up. He got up. He got up. He didn't get up all over again. He got up one time. And that was the only time he needed to get up. And he got up so that he could be the comforter to us, and he could give us the strength and the courage to get through this time. So, my windpipes are tired. Hey, Darlene. Hey, Goldie. Hey, Kirsten. And everyone else, I pray that you have a great Friday. It still is a good Friday. No matter what day he was crucified. The fact of the matter is he was. And we commemorate and we celebrate. And we also, above all, celebrate that he didn't stay there. He didn't stay in the tomb. He got up with all power in his hands, and we have access to that power to control our environment. I pray and hope that this blessed you. We have another call on Saturday. My church is doing a 7-day consecration for the nation, and we will be on our last call on tomorrow from 7 to 7:30. I will share that again. Take a time to view the 7 last cries from the cross that's happening. There's a lot of other content on social media, and let's take care of each other. Let's continue to pray for one another. Let's continue to look out for one another, and I will see you next week. Love you guys.